Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. We had a lovely hybrid event last week, and it was delightful to spend some time with Venerable Gendon Lamu and be inspired by her commitment to the education of girls in her very rural area. We were able to make an offering of $500 for her school and activities. So thank you for your generosity. Today, after doing prayers for Garchen Rinpoche and some of the suggestions that he was making about merit for his long life and good health, we return to the jewel ornament of liberation, the classic Lam Rim training, written by Gampopa, and you see Gampopa above my shoulder. And we're working with two books, Words of My Perfect Teacher and The Jewel Ornament of Liberation. And although their contents are very, very similar, their importance, it's important to look at their differences as well. So we looked at the aspiration for composing the prayer, composing the text earlier, and one of the significant differences is the way the Jewel Ornament of Liberation starts. It starts with the ground, which is a discourse on Buddha nature, that we can embark upon this road. Lam Rim means road or stages of the path. We can embark upon this road towards enlightenment and accomplish enlightenment because, and only because, we have Buddha nature. We say that Buddha nature is not something newly produced, and it's not something that arises due to causes and conditions. We say that Buddha nature and the fruition of Buddhahood is suchness. Sometimes it's called isness, or the nature of reality. So it is apart from duality, it's apart from this impermanent world of samsara. And how do we understand something that is apart from duality? By recognizing that we are not changing into something different. We have been all along indivisible with our own Buddha nature, and at the same time, due to our ignorance, we don't see or understand or function as a perfect Buddha because we are obscured by our own ignorance. And so the Lam Rim path is, how do we clear away the ignorance so that the Buddha nature that has always been present is totally revealed. So this is really an important point of Mahayana Buddhism, really clarified in later philosophy. It has just taken thousands of years to really explain very clearly what the Buddha realized and question all aspects of that and make it follow both logic and experience. We can put it that way. So the actual text of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation starts out with the words in the first chapter: we need to attain unsurpassable enlightenment by freeing ourselves from the confused state of samsara. But is it possible for inferior persons like ourselves to achieve enlightenment even if we make the effort? So this is the question. It's the question that we have when we lack confidence in our Buddha nature, but it's also the philosophical question that the discourses on Buddha nature start to answer. How is it that we who are confused, who are still bound by afflictive emotions, how do we even aspire to enlightenment when we see the depth of our confusion and ignorance. How is it possible? So the second sentence says, why wouldn't we attain enlightenment if we made the effort? All sentient beings, including ourselves, already possess the primary cause for enlightenment, the essence of the well-gone one. The essence of the well-gone one is another expression for Buddha nature. All sentient beings, including ourselves, already possess the primary cause, Buddha nature. And it's also very important to see that we're talking about all sentient beings. We're not distinguishing ourselves from any other being that possesses mind. So we're talking about the birds outside, the squirrels outside, all the different animals, all the different kinds of people with different kinds of personalities. Each and every one possess our seed or Buddha nature, and it is not different. There's not a distinction between our seed of Buddha nature and the squirrel's seed of Buddha nature. Buddha nature is like the emptiness or the space in front of us. We can't cut it and extract it and say, my piece is different from your piece. This Lam Rim text starts with the assurance that all sentient beings possess the primary cause for enlightenment. We all have Buddha nature or the seed of enlightenment because we have a mind. And due to that, we can confidently embark upon the path. I think I've talked before about how all of these texts are written in a particular style, in the sense that even the great enlightened beings don't state something like this without backing it up in the sutras. Just like when we were studying the Sharvasti commentary that Holiness wrote, he wasn't presenting it as his opinion only. He was saying, I can say this confidently because it appears here, it appears here, it appears here. It's also my direct experience. There are several quotes, including the King of Meditative Absorption Sutra. The essence of the well-gone one pervades all migrators. Migrators is another word for sentient beings, or the ornament of Mahayana Sutra. Even though suchness is not different for any being, one is called the thus gone one when it is fully purified. Therefore, all beings are of its essence. So, although we possess it, it is not fully purified in our experience or realization. So we don't have the qualities or the skills of a fully enlightened being. And then the Lam Rim is presented as the path to accomplish that full realization, that full purification. So then the text gives 3 reasons. We can hear it, but how do we start to be confident that we possess this inner perfection, and all sentient beings possess inner perfection, and our inner perfection isn't greater or lesser than, let's say, the Dalai Lama or the squirrel. It is a seed of perfection in all beings with mind. So the reasons that are given are because the perfect form of the Buddha radiates. This is an expression of Dharmakaya. The fullness of emptiness, the fullness of Dharmakaya, which includes a radiant compassion and skillful means, is indivisible with emptiness, and emptiness pervades all. So we can't say the emptiness that pervades this person is different from the emptiness that pervades any appearance, whether it's a squirrel or a revered teacher or each and every one of us. So that references back to the Heart Sutra that we were just reciting. When we start to understand emptiness in its fullness, or non-duality relative to the construction of an I-ness that each of us has created, when we finally are able to see the radiating emptiness that is simply an appearance, then we have a sense that this is the same for every appearance. And this is a beginning of an understanding of Dharmakaya. This contemplation of the Heart Sutra leads to both an understanding of emptiness, interdependence, and Dharmakaya. That's reason one. Reason two, because there are no distinctions within suchness. So suchness is a word that is bigger than just emptiness. It's what is. If there's no duality, what is? We only can use these words that help us not to objectify it or conceptualize it. So suchness is a word that we often use in English. So there are no distinctions within suchness. We can't look out at the ocean and say the impermanence of one wave is different from the impermanence of the next wave. Or, as I was saying before, the space in front of me isn't better, worse, or more distinct than the space in front of you. Or the sky. We can't take out a piece of the sky and say the piece of the sky over me is different from the piece of the sky over you. Then the third reason is because all are in a family. And when we understand the combination of those three reasons, we then confidently say all beings are always the essence of enlightenment. So in a minute, I'm going to talk about the definition of family that's used here. So the important understanding is really a teaching about innateness rather than changing from one thing to another thing. Sometimes we think, oh, magically, if I practice hard enough, I'm going to be a different, better person. And, we might imagine, oh, I'll be as compassionate as Mother Teresa and as wise as the Dalai Lama. We don't always have the confidence in our own Buddha nature to think that or rest in, once my ignorance is cleared away, all of that is there. It's only my ignorance that is like a dense cloud layer that prevents me from understanding, realizing, embodying all these different kinds of words that we can use, our own nature, which has always been present. So examples we can see in nature that you can try out, sometimes at, what are they called, baby showers. These days, it's not uncommon to pass around a jar of milk and have everybody shake it until butter appears. And that seems to be a metaphor for understanding a baby growing. But in this case, it's a metaphor for Buddha nature. If it was just water in the jar, butter would never appear in the process of shaking it. But butter is an innate potential of milk. Another example is coal and diamonds. If I had a piece of marble, it could never become a diamond. A piece of sandstone could never become a diamond. A piece of granite could never become a diamond. But since the potential of a diamond is within coal, coal can produce a diamond. So none of the examples of from nature include all the aspects, but at least they're ways for our mind that wants to grasp onto something. There are ways to see, oh yes, it looks like milk, I drink it as milk, but if I worked with it, it would become butter. The butter has always been there. So then back to all beings are part of a family. And the jewel ornament talks about, yes, although everyone has the same Buddha essence, we are part of different families. And this is not the same as the Vajrayana 5 Buddha families. This is a totally different classification. It has to do with the different kinds of beings there are and karma creating conditions that allow us to progress along the path to its full fruition, or have within the family certain kinds of obstacles. So the first family is called the disconnected family. So if someone was hard-hearted in their ignorances and would never open themselves to hearing about compassion, would angrily walk away, would be closed-minded, that's called the disconnected family. So although that person could reach enlightenment one day, has Buddha nature, they are very unlikely to open to enlightenment until that very dense ignorance changes. And this is one of the reasons why we build stupas, why monks and nuns wear their robes, because all of these things plant karmic seeds, even in the densest mind. So if you're driving by and you have, no interest in opening your heart mind, but you flash by a stupa, that's still a karmic seed that's planted. If you see a monk or nun walking, just seeing the robes of the Buddha, that's still a karmic seed that's planted. So although it's very difficult and it's not impossible, it's not likely in a disconnected family until the person begins to change their attitude towards their ignorance. Then there's the indefinite family. And the indefinite family is slightly more open. Let's say it's not that someone is closed to compassion or so clouded by their afflictive emotions that they're unable to see anything at all, but they might be in difficult circumstances. So if we were in a war zone, we might never hear a Dharma talk. If we were, and let's just say we're not talking only about Buddhism. Let's just say a spiritual talk that led to the same fruition. If you are in a situation that's desperate, there might never be a moment where you have time to sit down to hear anything. There might not be any Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, no matter what they look like or what religion they're holding that you ever encountered. So the indefinite family has to do with, can the causes and conditions come together for the opening of doors for you to progress along the path. So it helps us understand how blessed we are in this Western country. We weren't born into Buddhist families, but we're hearing the Dharma and receiving lots of Dharma talks. So the causes and conditions are very present in our lives. But it's rare when you think of all the situations. Just think of the animal realms. You know, they might be hearing the Dharma, but not having the capacity of mind to understand what's being said. So that's the indefinite family. The hearer family, and I'm going to go through the hearer family, the solitary realizer family, and the Mahayana family. And sometimes in our ignorance, we hear these classifications in a pejorative way, thinking that some of the yanas of Buddhism are less than and some are higher. And that's not what these families are trying to describe. They're describing the states of mind of the student. So the hearer family is someone who just wants the Dharma for themselves. They have no interest in developing compassion. They just, I want to get out of my suffering myself, and I'm going to do whatever it takes for myself. So there's no sense of the qualities of compassion that are inherent in the Dharma teachings. The second is called the solitary realizer family, and that quality of a mental state is not only limited in compassion, but very arrogant, very secretive, and very solitary. So it's hard to imagine, because really the Dharma melts so many of these qualities away. But if you have very little compassion plus arrogance, and you don't want to let people know about your teacher or what you're learning, and you always want to be just alone, practicing just for yourself. And we see this sometimes when very special transmissions are being given. There are some arrogant, secretive people who don't want to spread the word about, this wonderful teaching is being given, and this is how you find it, and this is the link to it. It is true that there are many teachings that are restricted to levels of study. That's different. This is on the part of the listener who doesn't want to share what they know and what they have access to. And then the Mahayana family, yes, we're using the word Mahayana, but it's not relative to other yanas. It's Mahayana in the sense of the extraordinary teachings on the Bodhisattva ideal, and how all of this practice and study is for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it's carrying that aspiration and intention. And if we look at the other schools of Buddhism, we can see how they might not name it Mahayana, or their textual language might not refer as often or clearly to the word bodhisattva, but that doesn't mean that they are not practicing great compassion and doing great compassionate works. It's not expressed in the ways that we might be familiar with it coming from our own school. So those are the different types of experiences that beings have. So we can say certainly all beings could be considered in one of these families, and yet all beings have Buddha nature, and that Buddha nature can't be differentiated. What can be differentiated is the progression along the path. And the Lam Rim is taught in order to progress along the path. So I'd like to invite you to settle in with this for a moment, to just take in that we're embarking upon these two wonderful texts that take us from where we are right now in our own understanding, and if we choose to practice, to complete fruition. And back to the first sentence, how is it that we have the capacity to imagine fruition and accomplish fruition, even though we know that we're not Buddhas yet? How do we even make this aspiration? It is due to the seed of Buddha nature within. So what I'm going to invite you to contemplate is just right now, what is your confidence in Buddha nature? Do you have confidence in a seed of inner perfection? And how do you access that confidence? And if it's very, very slight confidence, how are you listening to the teachings to begin to have full confidence? What is your readiness and willingness to take in, beyond guilt, beyond shame, beyond any actions we may have done or not done, yet we carry the seed of inner perfection. Let's sit with this. So now I'll do a dedication, but I think you might hear this dedication in a slightly different way relative to the distinctions of the 5 different families. So bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So although those beings in the disconnected family have Buddha nature, bodhicitta hasn't arisen. So where it is unborn, may it arise. In the disconnected family, may it arise. And where it has arisen, in the subsequent 4 families, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher.